Emily Carter's disappearance wasn't just a missing person case, it was the unraveling of Willow Creek's darkest secret. And Daniel Reeves, the teacher everyone trusted, would soon be revealed as the town's greatest nightmare. The town of Willow Creek had always carried the reputation of being safe, almost too safe. It was the kind of place where people left their front doors unlocked, where children rode bicycles after dark, and neighbors waved to one another without suspicion. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect place to live, but peace can sometimes mask secrets too dark to imagine. Life moved slowly here, with little excitement and very few disturbances, which is why what happened next shook the town to its core. For years, nothing serious had ever occurred in Willow Creek. The police were more concerned with traffic stops and stray pets than criminal investigations. Locals often bragged that crime belonged in big cities, not in their quiet streets. But beneath this illusion of safety, there were subtle signs that something wasn't right. Pets had gone missing in recent months, and strange footprints had been spotted near the edge of the woods. At first, these oddities were brushed off as coincidences or the work of wild animals, but those who paid closer attention couldn't shake the unease that lingered in the air. It was in the middle of this false calm that Emily Carter went missing, an event that exposed just how fragile the town's sense of security really was. Her disappearance was the first time Willow Creek faced something that couldn't be explained away or ignored. It wasn't a lost pet or a bad storm. It was a young woman vanishing without a trace, and suddenly, everything the townspeople thought they knew about their community was called into question. What they didn't realize yet was that Emily's case was just the beginning, and the darkness hidden in their peaceful little town was about to come alive in a way no one could have predicted. On a cold November evening, the quiet rhythm of Willow Creek was broken when Emily Carter failed to return home after her late shift at the local diner. Emily was only 23, known for her bright smile, kindness, and responsible nature. She was the type of person who always kept her family informed of her whereabouts. When she didn't answer her phone that night, her parents immediately knew something was wrong. At first, they hoped she had been delayed by a friend or stopped for groceries, but hours passed with no sign of her. The next morning, their worst fears began to take shape. Her car was found 2 streets away from the diner where she worked. The keys were still in the ignition, her purse lay on the passenger seat, and nothing seemed stolen. It was as if she had stepped out for a moment and simply vanished into thin air. What unsettled investigators most was how neatly the vehicle was parked. There was no sign of struggle, no broken glass, no evidence to suggest a robbery or an accident. It looked intentional, almost staged. Word of Emily's disappearance spread quickly through the small community. Friends and neighbors formed search groups, combing through fields, backyards, and wooded trails. Volunteers carried flashlights into the night, calling out her name, clinging to hope that she might answer back. But there was only silence. The town, once defined by its peaceful charm, now carried an uneasy tension. To the investigators, the case felt different from the beginning. Emily was not the type to run away, and there were no signs of personal trouble that could explain her vanishing. The unanswered questions weighed heavily. Who took her? Why did they leave her car so perfectly placed, and what message was hidden in that eerie scene? Investigators began piecing together the mystery surrounding Emily Carter's disappearance, and almost immediately, strange details started to emerge. The first was her phone. Found inside her purse, it had been completely wiped clean. No messages, no call logs, no social media history. Nothing remained. It was as if someone had gone through great lengths to erase her digital footprint. For a young woman who was constantly in touch with friends and family, the absence of data was alarming. Then came a discovery that unsettled even the most seasoned detectives. Along a wooded path near where her car was found, searchers came across Emily's shoes. They weren't scattered or thrown aside in haste. Instead, they were placed neatly side by side at the entrance of the trail. It looked deliberate, almost like a breadcrumb left to lure anyone curious enough to follow. But when officers pushed deeper into the woods, they found nothing. No signs of struggle, no clothing, no footprints that could lead them further. The shoes were a dead end, but the message was clear. Someone wanted them to look there. Neighbors who lived near the area reported hearing strange noises in the nights leading up to Emily's disappearance. Some claimed they heard footsteps outside their homes. Others swore they saw a figure lingering near the tree line. These accounts, vague as they were, added another layer of unease. The investigation that had seemed at first like a standard missing person case now felt like something far more disturbing. Whoever had taken Emily wasn't just hiding, they were playing a game. Every clue pointed to an unseen hand carefully controlling the narrative, making the police chase shadows. The mystery wasn't just about where Emily had gone, but why her abductor seemed determined to taunt those trying to find her. As the search for Emily dragged on with no breakthrough, suspicion began to shift toward people who had crossed paths with her in the days before she disappeared. Detectives reviewed hours of security footage from businesses near the diner, and one particular detail stood out. A familiar face appeared on camera close to closing time, lingering near the street where Emily usually parked her car. That man was Daniel Reeves, a respected high school teacher known throughout Willow Creek for his calm demeanor and gentle nature. At first, many dismissed the idea that Daniel could be involved. He was trusted, admired, and often volunteered to help with local events. Parents described him as patient, students saw him as approachable, and his reputation was nearly spotless. But when detectives began digging into his background, cracks in that perfect image started to appear. Years earlier, Daniel had worked at a different school in another town. Records showed that he had left suddenly, with little explanation. After pressing further, investigators uncovered a disturbing reason. He had been quietly removed after allegations of inappropriate behavior toward female students. The matter never went public, and with no formal charges, Daniel was free to move on and rebuild his life elsewhere. He chose Willow Creek, a town that welcomed him with open arms, unaware of his past. When questioned about Emily, Daniel remained composed, even cooperative, but his calmness unsettled detectives. His answers were polished, rehearsed, almost too perfect. It was as if he had anticipated their questions long before they were asked. For the first time, the people of Willow Creek found themselves doubting the man they once trusted most. The suspicion around Daniel Reeves was no longer something that could be ignored. 3 weeks after Emily's disappearance, a grim discovery shattered whatever hope remained in Willow Creek. A group of hunters, walking deep into the forest on the outskirts of town, stumbled upon a shallow grave. The disturbed earth caught their attention, and when they investigated, they found what investigators had dreaded. Human remains, partially buried, lay hidden beneath layers of soil and leaves. The scene was disturbing and deliberate. Whoever had done this had tried to cover their tracks, but not carefully enough. Among the remains were personal items scorched by fire, as though someone had attempted to destroy them. A burned scarf, fragments of clothing, and pieces of jewelry were scattered in the dirt. But one item stood out, a delicate silver necklace shaped like a small star. Friends and family instantly recognized it as Emily's, a piece she never took off. The confirmation was heartbreaking. Forensic experts worked tirelessly at the scene, uncovering every possible clue. Mixed in with the ashes was something investigators didn't expect, a half-melted metallic badge. Though damaged, it bore scratched initials, DR. The discovery was chilling. Many believed it was a mistake left by the killer, a slip in what otherwise seemed like a carefully constructed crime. The news of the grave spread quickly through Willow Creek. Shock turned into horror, and the peaceful image of the town crumbled completely. People whispered about what else might be hidden in the woods, what other secrets lay beneath the surface. For Emily's family, the grave was a devastating confirmation, but for investigators, it was also a breakthrough. The grave didn't just reveal tragedy, it hinted at a connection too close to ignore, one that pointed directly back to Daniel Reeves. The discovery of the grave didn't just confirm the town's fears, it divided Willow Creek in a way no one expected. For decades, the town had thrived on trust, where people looked out for one another without question. Now, with Daniel Reeves at the center of suspicion, that trust began to crumble. Some residents refused to believe that a respected teacher, a man who had spent years mentoring children and volunteering at community events, could be capable of such brutality. To them, The badge found in the grave was nothing more than a planted piece of evidence, a cruel attempt to frame an innocent man. Others, however, saw the signs clearly. They pointed to his mysterious past, the sudden resignation from a previous school, and his strangely calm demeanor during questioning. To them, the pieces of the puzzle fit together too neatly to ignore. Heated arguments broke out at town meetings and even in church gatherings. Longtime friends stopped speaking to each other, neighbors exchanged suspicious glances, and families that once shared dinners avoided contact altogether. The suspicion didn't just surround Daniel, it infected the entire town. Meanwhile, Daniel himself maintained an unnerving composure. He went about his routine as though nothing had changed, offering polite greetings to those who glared at him in public. His confidence only deepened the divide. Some whispered that his calmness was the mark of a calculating predator, while others believed it proved his innocence. For investigators, the tension in the community became another obstacle. Tips flooded in, some credible, others nothing more than fear-fueled paranoia. Every day, the case grew murkier, but one fact remained unavoidable. Whether guilty or not, Daniel Reeves had become the center of Willow Creek's nightmare, and the town was tearing itself apart around him. As the weeks passed, detectives dug deeper into Daniel Reeves' history, determined to uncover what he might be hiding. What they found painted a picture far darker than anyone in Willow Creek could have imagined. Records from towns where Daniel had previously lived revealed disturbing patterns. In each place, there had been whispers of missing young women, cases that were never solved, incidents that seemed isolated at the time but now looked chillingly connected. There were no convictions, no official links tying him to the disappearances, but the timing of his moves from one community to another was too precise to ignore. Investigators began reaching out to law enforcement in other states, piecing together fragments of information that had once been dismissed as coincidences. Witnesses recalled seeing Daniel near the last known locations of some of the missing women. In one town, a former student described how he used to linger around young female staff after hours, his friendly exterior hiding something unsettling. In another, a neighbor recalled late-night trips into the woods, always returning with dirt on his clothes. These details, while circumstantial, created a growing sense of dread. The more detectives uncovered, the more it became clear that Willow Creek had not been Daniel's first hunting ground. His charm, his calm voice, and his reputation as a man of authority had shielded him from suspicion for years. He blended into communities, earning trust before quietly moving on when suspicion grew too close. Emily's case, however, had been different. He had slipped, leaving behind evidence that tied him directly to the crime. For investigators, the revelations were overwhelming. What began as a single missing person case was rapidly unraveling into the terrifying possibility of a serial predator who had managed to stay hidden in plain sight for years. With mounting evidence and growing suspicion, investigators knew they couldn't risk waiting any longer. They believed Daniel Reeves was calculating, intelligent, and capable of striking again, if given the chance. To catch him, they devised a plan designed to expose his true nature. It would require patience, precision, and the courage of someone willing to put themselves directly in his path. The operation began with an undercover officer carefully chosen to resemble the type of victim Daniel seemed to target: young, vulnerable, and walking alone at night. Dressed casually, she was placed near the diner where Emily had last been seen. Hidden cameras were set up along the route, and officers concealed themselves in unmarked vehicles, ready to intervene at a moment's notice. As the night unfolded, tension gripped everyone involved. Hours passed with no sign of Daniel, and doubts began to creep in. Then, just as the undercover officer started her walk toward the wooded trail, a shadow emerged from the darkness. Daniel appeared, moving with quiet confidence, his figure blending into the night as though he had done this countless times before. At first, he simply followed, keeping his distance, but gradually he closed the gap. The cameras recorded his every move, the way he scanned the street, the way his steps quickened as the officer neared the edge of the woods. Finally, he reached out, attempting to coax her off the main path. That was the signal investigators had been waiting for. Within seconds, Officers swarmed from every direction, lights flashing and weapons drawn. Daniel's calm mask slipped for the first time as he realized the trap had been set. The hunt was over, and the man who had haunted Willow Creek was finally in custody. When officers finally searched Daniel Reeves' home, what they uncovered was far worse than anyone had imagined. Beneath the quiet exterior of his small suburban house was a hidden basement sealed off from casual visitors. The air inside was heavy, stale, and lined with shelves that told a horrifying story. Investigators found boxes filled with personal belongings, purses, jewelry, scraps of clothing, even handwritten notes, all carefully labeled and stored. These were not just Emily's possessions. They belonged to multiple women, some who had gone missing years earlier in different towns. The basement was a secret trophy room, each item a silent reminder of lives taken and families left broken. Emily's belongings were there too. Her silver necklace, her work badge, and burned fragments of her clothing were neatly placed in a small container. The discovery confirmed what investigators already feared. Daniel had not only killed Emily, but she was part of a much larger, chilling pattern. As news spread, Willow Creek was overwhelmed with shock and grief. Residents who once defended Daniel felt betrayed, struggling to reconcile the trusted teacher with the monster hiding in plain sight. Families from other towns were contacted, reopening wounds for those who had never found answers about their missing loved ones. For them, Daniel's capture was both relief and torment. Relief that the truth was finally known, but torment at the realization that justice had come too late. Daniel himself showed no remorse. In custody, his calmness returned, unsettling everyone who watched him. To the end, he seemed to enjoy the chaos he had caused, as though being unmasked was part of his plan all along. The nightmare had ended in arrest, but the scars he left behind would haunt Willow Creek forever.